I drove hospice kits for a medical courier company. I was deep in pills and deep in debt, and my plan was to skim extra meds from seal boxes, flip them, then act helpful and clean when families answer the door. My role put me in strangers' houses. My motive was withdrawal avoidance, and the logistics were stupidly easy. The kits came from a partner pharmacy in plain cardboard with a tamper strip that looked official, but peeled if you warmed it with your thumb. Dispatch loaded my van like it was just groceries. Skin gun, clipboard, a route that changed every morning, and nobody wanted to look too close because hospice meant everyone was already stressed. I told myself I was taking from a system, not a person. That was the first lie that worked. The second lie was that I'd stop once I caught up on money. I kept saying that while my hands shook on the wheel and my stomach rolled like I had food poisoning, because withdrawal makes you swear you'll become a saint if you can just feel normal for 1 hour. I started small because I wanted to believe I still had a line. I didn't hit the kits right away. I hit junk drawers. I'd knock, smile, hand over the box, then keep the clipboard up like a shield and say I needed to double-check the paperwork while they hunted for glasses or a pen. Most houses have the same drawer. Dead batteries, rubber bands, old receipts, random pill bottles people can't bring themselves to toss. My fingers learned the shapes. I could slide a bottle into my hoodie pocket without looking down, then close the drawer and nod like I was being helpful. I told myself it was victimless because half the time the bottles were old and dusty and nobody cared. Then I started finding the newer stuff, the stuff with fresh labels, and instead of stopping, I felt relief, so hard it made me dizzy. I'd get back in the van, and my whole body would unclench like I'd just escaped being dragged underwater. Then I got bolder, because once you get away with something, the fear turns into routine. The tamper strips on the hospice boxes were a joke. I'd sit in my van on some quiet street, doors locked, radio low, warm the strip with my palm, peel it slow, and open the kit like I was unboxing a phone. Inside were the things families prayed they'd never need and then couldn't live without. Morphine, lorazepam, haloperidol, syringes, gloves. I told myself hospice always sent extra, that the patient was already dying, that nobody would miss a few doses because they're asleep most of the time anyway. I said all of it like it was math, like comfort was a number you could subtract from and still call it humane. I kept a couple junk bottles in the glove box, so the kit still felt full when somebody grabbed around inside. I got good at resealing the strip, so it looked untouched. I hated how good I got. The first time the lie started tasting like blood was a small house with a ramp and wind chimes and that too clean smell of disinfectant. A woman opened the door, daughter, maybe mid-30s, hair yanked back, eyes red like she hadn't slept in days. She didn't chat. She just wanted the box. I did my practiced helpful voice, got the signature, and while she turned to clear space on a table, I drifted toward the kitchen like it was nothing. I popped the junk drawer, found 2 amber bottles, one empty and one half full, and I slid the half full into my pocket like I'd done it 1,000 times. Then she opened the hospice kit right there. Not later, not after I left. Right there because she was terrified and organized and sick of surprises. She pulled out the morphine bottle, turned it once, shook it, and the rattle came out wrong, thin, light like loose coins. Her face went white so fast it was like someone flipped a switch. She didn't yell. That almost killed me because yelling would have made it a scene I could fight. She just held the bottle and looked at me like she was trying to decide if I was a problem she had the strength to deal with. She said quiet and flat, "This feels light." My throat closed. My brain screamed run, but my legs stayed planted. I lied the way addicts lie when they're trapped. Smooth, quick, like it's just another form. I shrugged, did a little that happens sometimes, and told her the pharmacy occasionally made packing errors. We could file a report, they'd fix it. I kept my hands open, palms out like I was clean. She stared at my badge, then at the box, then passed me like she was doing math she didn't have time for. She needed those meds more than she needed to be right. I watched her swallow whatever suspicion she had because she didn't have the luxury of blowing up at the wrong person. She signed, took the kit, and I walked out with my pocket heavy and my skin crawling. In the van, I sat there breathing through my teeth. I didn't feel proud. I felt dirty and hungry at the same time. Back at the depot, I filed a packaging error report like a good employee. There was a checkbox for everything, so I checked them. The system thanked me for quality control. My supervisor called later, fucking pissed because reports made work. He wanted to know if the family was making noise. I said no, they were calm, just worried. He told me to stop creating paperwork unless someone threatened to sue. Then he hung up. No audit, no follow-up. Nobody sent a replacement kit fast. The system didn't care because the system isn't a person sitting at a table praying a bottle isn't short. A week later, dispatch changed my route last minute. My phone pinged with a new address while I was in traffic. I pulled into a gas station lot, opened the app, and saw the last name on the porch sign field. My last name. Not common. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I'd black out. I told myself coincidence because my brain loves coincidence when the truth wants to break your ribs. I drove anyway. Every red light felt personal. When I turned onto the street, I recognized the curve, the old maple tree, the mailbox I used to kick when I was a kid. Then I saw the porch sign with my family's name, and I just sat there, hands locked on the wheel, like the van had become a coffin. I parked and just sat with the kid on my lap. The cardboard looked like every other kid I'd cracked open. The tamper strip stared at me like a dare. My fingers hovered over it out of reflex. I could feel the itch, that ugly little voice. Take some now. Take it and you can breathe. Nobody will know. Then another voice answered, flat and cold. If you do it here, you're done. I locked my hands around the box like I was stopping myself from touching a hot stove. The front door opened before I moved. My mom stood there with that brittle smile people where when the world's collapsing and they're trying not to let it show. Her eyes were swollen, her hands busy with nothing, wiping a counter that didn't need wiping. She saw my uniform and her face flickered, confusion, then that slow, sick realization that I've been doing this kind of delivery. She didn't ask how long. She didn't ask what else I'd seen. She just stepped aside because that's what she does when there's no good choice. My dad sat in his recliner, smaller than I remembered, like the illness had shaved him down. He tried to sit up straighter when he saw me, like pride could brace his spine. I wanted to scream at him for hiding it. I wanted to hug him and never let go. Instead, I did my job like a robot, because that's what I knew how to do without falling apart. I scanned the barcode, set the kid on the table, and handed my mom the pen. Her hand shook so bad she couldn't sign, so I signed my own delivery sheet, my own name on a line that suddenly felt like a confession. I didn't steal this time. I didn't even touch the tamper strip. My fingers twitched anyway, and I shoved them into my pockets, so hard I dubbed my nails into my palms. My mom thanked me like I was helping, like I was her son doing something useful, and that thanks hit me harder than any insult. My dad tried to crack a joke, and it came out thin. I couldn't stand the sound. I couldn't stand how fucking normal the room tried to look with sickness sitting in the middle of it like a bomb. I walked out fast. I didn't hug them. I didn't say the right comforting shit. I just escaped. In the driveway, my hand started shaking so hard I dropped my keys. I crouched to grab them, and my stomach flipped, and I gagged. Not from withdrawal exactly, more like my body rejecting what I'd become. I slammed the van door and sat there, breathing, staring at the house. Rage rose up out of nowhere, sharp and mean. I was furious at him for needing the thing I'd been taking from everyone else. Furious at him for getting sick quietly like it was noble. Furious at myself for thinking strangers didn't count until my own blood was on the paperwork. I drove the rest of the route on autopilot, sweating through my shirt, hearing that daughter's quiet "this feels light" in my head like a loop. Every porch I walked up to felt like my parents' porch. Every signature felt like evidence. When I got home, I dumped my uniform on the floor and went straight to my stash. I opened the bag, poured the bottles into my hand, and for the first time in months, my hand froze. That night, I opened my stash and couldn't swallow. Every pill felt like it had my father's name stamped on it. I volunteered with the park cleanup crew on weekends. I hated a hiker who filmed me dumping trash and got me banned for a month. And my plan was to fix one trail marker so his favorite route would loop him out longer and embarrass him. My role gave me access to signage and tools. My motive was petty revenge, and the logistics were just a screwdriver in a quiet morning. That's the clean summary. The ugly part is how normal it felt. Saturdays meant orange vest, grabber stick, trash bags, and a bunch of people acting like picking up cans made us saints. I wasn't there for the wholesome vibe. I was there because I needed something that looked like progress. If I did 2 hours in the woods, I could go home and tell myself I wasn't just wasting oxygen. I also liked the access more than I admitted. You get keys. You get a shed full of tools. I've been cleaning the same steep stretch for weeks, and it was always full of someone's junk, wrappers, dog poop bags, broken plastic, beer cans rolled under scrub. That day I was tired and pissed, and my hands were raw from wet bags. I got sick of hauling the weight uphill, so I dragged 2 heavy bags behind a maintenance gate, tucked them out of sight, and told myself I'd swing back with my car and toss them in the dumpster later. Then I heard a camera shutter and that electronic little squeak some phones make when they lock focus. I turned, and there was this guy with a gimbal pointed right at me. Clean gear, clean boots, like he'd stepped out of an ad. He didn't ask what I was doing. He just filmed, steady as a surgeon, and when I told him to stop, he kept going with that soft voice that makes you sound insane if you get loud. I stepped toward him, and he backed up, still recording my face and the logo on my vest. I said some shit I shouldn't have said. He stayed calm and kept the lens on me like I was a display case. By the next morning, the clip was in a local hiking group with a caption like I was some kind of villain. People I'd never met called me a pig. People who litter every weekend lectured about stewardship. Someone tagged the park page. Someone emailed my name because my vest had it stitched on like a target. My phone buzzed all day with messages from other volunteers asking what the hell I was doing. Monday, the volunteer coordinator called and went straight into the polite knife. 1 month suspension. Accountability. Standards. I argued. I told her I'd been doing that route every weekend, and nobody ever complained until a guy with a camera decided to play hero. I told her he filmed me and posted it for clout. She said the park couldn't control visitors. I asked if she was going to ban him for interfering with staff, and she said he wasn't staff. She said if I cared about the park, I'd accept the consequence and come back with a better attitude. I didn't just get mad. I got small. I kept replaying his grin and the comments and my face on someone else's screen like a mugshot. He kept posting after that. Sunrise shots, trail stats, little sermons about respecting nature. People cheered him on like he'd saved a baby. I started checking his photos for landmarks like I was building a case. Same ridge, same junction sign, same route he bragged about doing on autopilot. My suspension didn't erase what I already had. The park didn't change the access code. I still knew where the signage shed was. I'd tightened bolts on markers before. It's part of the job. The thought hit me simple and mean. If he trusted the sign so much, I could make one lie to him, just a little. Not a cliff, not a trap, just a longer loop and a bruised ego. I pictured him filming himself lost, trying to act calm while the panic crept in. I picked a foggy morning because fog makes everything quieter and it makes you feel unseen. I parked where volunteers park, walked in like I belonged, and headed straight to that junction. No one was there. The sign sat calm and certain. I loosened the bolts, rotated the arrow maybe 15 degrees, and tightened it down. It still looked normal. It would still pass a quick glance. I told myself it would cost him an extra hour and nothing more. I drove home feeling smug, like I'd finally won something. 2 days later, his face was everywhere, but not in a flexing selfie. Missing. Search underway. Drones. Dogs. The same hiking group that roasted me suddenly acted like a family. People posted maps and prayers and theories and begged for volunteers. Nobody said, check the signs. They blamed weather and bad luck and dead phone batteries. Anything but the possibility that the trail itself had been nudged by a human hand. The coordinator asked for volunteers. I put the vest on anyway. I told myself it was damage control. The truth was I wanted to watch. I showed up with my head down, nodded at people, and took an assignment like I was one of the good ones. Some volunteers side-eyed me and whispered. One woman asked, loud enough for others to hear, if I was back to dumping trash or actually helping. I snapped back and then swallowed it because families were standing there crying. We moved in a line through brush, calling his name until our throats tore up. We climbed over deadfall. We checked clearings. We found a hat that wasn't his and a bottle that belonged to someone else. People argued about where to focus. A ranger kept pushing everyone back toward the marked routes. Another volunteer kept insisting the ravines were the only place that mattered. I stood there pretending to listen while my mind kept circling one thing. Then we reached it, the exact spot. The sign looked innocent. The arrow looked confident. I watched strangers trust it without thinking, watched them point down the spur and say, yeah, he probably went that way. My stomach dropped so hard my knees went loose. I wanted to grab the sign and twist it back right there. But that would have been a confession without words. So I stood there in my vest, holding a clipboard like a prop, and let them walk. Weeks later, they found him down a ravine off the wrong spur trail. Not eaten, not cut up, just collapsed in leaves, skin pulled tight, mouth open like he'd been fighting for breath. The coroner called it exposure and dehydration, clean words for slow death. They said he was experienced. They said he knew those woods. I heard all of it and felt my stomach turn because none of that mattered once he trusted the wrong arrow and kept moving. Nobody questioned the sign. Nobody checked the bolts. They treated it like a fixed truth, like it couldn't be wrong unless it fell over. They held a memorial. They posted his best photos. They thanked volunteers and called it a tragedy, like tragedy just happens by itself. My suspension ended and life kept moving. I kept seeing that arrow in my head, like a little needle stuck under my skin. After they found him, the park did what it always does. Meetings, checklists, a safety refresher that everyone treated like a chore. The coordinator stood in front of us with a slideshow about staying on trail and carrying basics. She never said his name out loud, but everyone knew. People argued about closing that loop in winter. A ranger snapped at a volunteer for suggesting more signs because signs do not replace common sense. I sat there biting the inside of my cheek, so I would not say anything stupid. Out on the trail, I heard hikers say he must have been reckless. I heard a volunteer say maybe he had been showing off for his videos. They wanted a reason that kept the world clean. I nodded like I agreed and went home and stared at my hands in the sink. Every buzz on my phone made me flinch. I kept expecting someone to say they had checked the junction and found fresh tool marks. Nothing came. That silence did not feel like luck. It felt like getting buried. I went back to the junction a couple times in the weeks after, always when it was quiet, always pretending I was just hiking. I stood off to the side and watched strangers glance at the sign and move on without thinking. That was the part that broke me. People do not study bolts. They do not question arrows. They just go. One morning, I drove back alone with a screwdriver. No vest, no clipboard. I walked straight to the junction like it was the only honest place left. The woods looked normal, which pissed me off. I stood there staring at the arrow until my eyes burned. I loosened the bolts, turned it back, tightened it until it squeaked, then tightened it more like I could crush what I'd done into the metal. I stood there listening to the forest like it could accuse me, and it stayed quiet. Now I still hike. I still point tourists the right way with a friendly smile. Every time someone thanks me, I feel that junction in my hands again, and I wonder how many accidents are just people like me adjusting the world by a few degrees. I moderated a local widows and widowers Facebook group under my real name. I wanted money and control, and I didn't give a fuck who paid for it. And my plan was to create a second account as a gentle, broken-hearted guy, DM the loneliest members, and drain them with fake emergencies while I stayed the trusted admin. My role gave me access to fresh grief. My motive was greed, and the logistics were just copy-paste and patience. I told myself it was just taken from the internet, like these were usernames, not people who still had funeral programs on their fridge and their spouse's shoes by the door. I learned who to pick by who posted at 3 a.m. Those were the ones staring at the ceiling with a phone on their chest, typing like they didn't want to wake the house. I'd approve their posts fast, drop a supportive comment from my real profile, then slide into their DMs from the fake one an hour later like it was coincidence. I mirrored their language hard. If they wrote, "I keep setting 2 plates," I wrote, "I keep grabbing 2 forks." If they wrote praying for strength, I wrote same every damn day. I kept the tone soft, a little broken, never needy. I asked for nothing at first. I let them offer. When one sent a gift card just to help, I took it like it was owed. I told myself it was voluntary while my fingers typed the code in. When another hesitated, I pushed without sounding like I pushed. I sent a crop photo of a hospital wristband I'd pulled from Google, blurred the right spots, and said I was stuck between tests and embarrassed to ask. People don't fact-check when they're desperate to matter. They just want to be the person who steps in when everyone else looks away. I let them be that person, then I spent the money on groceries and rent and acted like I'd earned it. It worked too well. My phone would light up with messages full of raw, ugly stuff. How they found the body, how the bed felt wrong, how everyone stopped calling after the funeral. They thought I was safe. They thought the admin of the group was watching out for them, and the sweet widower in their inbox understood them. I'd be in my kitchen with a bowl of cereal, reading paragraphs about someone's dead wife, and I'd answer with 2 lines that kept them talking. I started to feel proud, and that's when it stopped being a hustle and turned into something rotten in me. The group helped me hunt. I'd post late-night check-ins and watch who replied. I'd delete comments from the few people who warned about scammers. I'd ban anyone who got too loud and then write a pinned post about keeping the space supportive. People thanked me for protecting them while I was picking them off one by one. I got messages calling me a blessing, an angel, the reason they didn't do something stupid. I'd type back like I cared, then I'd swap accounts and keep working the same lonely people who just thank my real name for being strong. Then one woman posted a warning. She didn't name my fake account, but she said someone from the group had messaged her asking for help with medical bills. The comments blew up. Some people called her paranoid. A couple told her to stop stirring shit. Others said it happened to them too. She posted screenshots, and I felt my stomach drop because I recognized my own rhythm in the messages, my soft phrases, my habit of over-explaining, the way I try to sound ashamed while asking for help. I went straight into responsible admin mode. I wrote a serious post about never sending money, reporting suspicious accounts, staying safe. I deleted the comment threads that got too specific. I banned one random obvious spot to look like I was doing something. I damned the warning woman to get details, thank her like I was on her side, then muted her so she couldn't light up the group again. I kept going anyway. I just got cleaner. New wording, smaller asks, more waiting. I set up templates so I could fire off the same gentle opening to anyone who posted certain words, because I got lazy and I liked the feeling of it running without effort. It stopped being a scheme and turned into a routine, like checking the mail. Then a new member joined the group, my mother. Her real name, her old profile picture, my dad in half the photos because she never changed anything. She'd never used Facebook like this. My father had died 3 months earlier and she'd been quiet, fine, stubborn. The kind of fine that makes you stop asking because you don't want to start a fight. My sister and I argued about it, each of us accusing the other of not showing up enough, like grief was a chore we could split evenly and finish. I hadn't seen my mom cry once. She just kept moving and kept saying she was okay in that flat voice that makes you feel helpless. She posted one line about loneliness and a crying emoji, and my stomach flipped like I'd swallow glass. My name sat right there at the top of the group like a badge, like I was some fucking saint. I stared at her post and felt the air leave my lungs. I wanted to protect her from the exact thing I'd built, and I also wanted to disappear. My fake account messaged her automatically because I'd set up templates. I watched it happen like watching a trap snap shut. I saw the message sitting there in the thread. That same gentle opener I'd used on dozens of people. I deleted it fast, frantic, like I could scrub the whole thing clean if I moved quick enough. Too late. She replied. She sent a heart and called the fake name sweet. She thanked him for reaching out. She said she didn't want to bother her kids. She didn't want to be that mom. She just needed someone who understood. I sat there staring at the screen, shaking, feeling this hot shame climb up my throat. For a second, I wanted to confess to her. For a second, I wanted to throw my phone and drive to her house and just sit there like a normal son. Instead, I froze because my brain wouldn't pick a direction. Then the other part of me kicked in, the part I'd fed for months, the part that thought about risk. If I stopped answering, she'd worry. If I blocked her, she'd feel rejected. If I deleted the fake account, she might post about it, and people would start asking questions. And if people started asking questions, they'd look at the admin. They'd look at me. I hated that my first fear wasn't her getting hurt. It was me getting caught. So I did the worst thing. I kept replying. Not with money requests. Not with the hospital photo. Just enough attention to keep her talking, because cutting her off felt cruel and dangerous at the same time. She wrote about the empty bed. She wrote about hearing my dad's keys in her head. She wrote that she sat in the car some nights because the house felt too quiet. She wrote that she didn't want her kids to see her like this. I read that line over and over and felt something crack. Then I got mad at myself for reading my mother like a mark. The group stayed tense. People kept whispering about scammers. Someone messaged me as admin asking why the nice widower always sounded the same. Another person said they were collecting screenshots and comparing timestamps. I started sleeping with my phone face down like that would stop it from ruining me. I wiped old chats, changed a fake profile photo, tweaked the name, but it all felt pointless. My mother even commented under one of my admin posts, thanking me for keeping the group safe, and that almost made me gag. Then my mom messaged again from that thread and asked if the fake guy had anyone checking on him. She offered to send a little something because she hated thinking of someone alone in a hospital. My thumb hovered over the keyboard like it wanted to type yes. I didn't take it. I couldn't. Not from her. But the fact I had to fight the impulse made me feel dirty in a way I can't explain. It wasn't a moral choice. It was a reflex I trained into my own hands. That night, I scrolled back through months of DMs. All those strangers calling me a lifesaver. All those gift cards and little transfers. All those God bless you messages, and I realized I didn't remember most of their names. I remembered amounts. I remembered which ones paid fast and which ones needed a shove. I had turned grief into a spreadsheet, and now my mother was inside it. I deleted the message. Too late. She replied with a heart and called the fake name sweet. I sat there shaking, realizing I'd built a machine that didn't care who it hurt, including me.